Taoiseach, have you no shame? I expected that you would come in here today and present a robust defence of your government's performance and of your own performance. And I did expect indeed that you would have your usual thump at the opposition or at anybody else that you could find to blame. But frankly, I think that you excelled yourself with the self-serving nature of the contribution that you made here in opening this debate today. You have given us a half hour of the most shameless speech that I have heard in Dáil Éireann for a very long time. The thickest exercise in hard-neck politics that I have heard in a very long time. All about yourselves. All about justifying your own actions, your own performance, your own term of office. I had very little about the problems that people are facing in this country today. The 440,000 people who are on the live register. Highest number ever. Even in the worst of days, the 30s and 50s, never reached anything like that. 250,000 people who've lost their jobs since your government was re-elected in 1997. Many of whom the redundancy money is now gone and they're now trying to survive on social welfare payments that your government has cut. The hundreds of businesses that have gone to the wall and the many more that are trying to survive, and people working in them and running them who tell me that it's been months, if not longer, that they were able to take any personal payment from their businesses. The families that are trying to pay mortgages in negative equity. Young people graduating from college who are worried, as are their parents, about their prospect of getting employment. Pensioners who are worried if they are not next on the target list from this government. And you tell us everybody else is to blame. You give us a long list today of all of the people that are to blame. And the closest you got to accepting any responsibility yourself was when you spoke about the reports, the two reports last week, and how they blamed governments. Where did you get the plural, Taoiseach? You have been in government for the past 13 years as a minister. You were Minister for Finance for 4 of those, and for Taoiseach now for more than 2. There is no plural. When you say governments, you mean your own government, and you have to take responsibility for what you have done, something that you have not accepted today. You ask us to come in here today and to vote confidence in yourself and your government, and I have no hesitation in saying that the Labour Party will not do so. We will not vote confidence in you, Taoiseach, because like the rest of the people of this country, we have long ago lost confidence in you as Taoiseach and in your government. We want Fianna Fáil and the Greens out of government. We want a general election. We want a fresh start for this country, and we want to move on as the vast majority of people in this country do. At one level, what we are doing here today is a parliamentary exercise. You say that your mandate to govern comes from having a majority support in this House. This is a test today, a challenge, as to whether or not you continue to have that support. And it is a challenge for each individual deputy, whether they are in Fianna Fáil, the Green Party, or an independent. And the challenge for them is whether they will stand by their own narrow personal or party interest, or whether they will stand by the people who elected them. Because the question that I hear everywhere that I go is, when are you going to get them out? When are we going to have an election? And when are we going to have a new government? That is a question that can be answered today. And I can certainly speak for all of the Labour deputies. We want this government out. We want a fresh start for the country. But the question is, how do the independent deputies, the Green deputies and Fianna Fáil backbenchers stand on this question? And in many ways, that is the most important question of all. because this is a representative assembly. Each of us here has a duty to represent the views of the people who elected us here, and I believe that the people of this country want the present government out of office. Putting the question another way, if it were the people of the country who were voting on this motion today, what would the outcome be? I have no doubt whatever that if the people of this country had a vote on this motion today, they would vote by an overwhelming majority to get your government out of office. So the question for deputies then is, where do they stand, for themselves or for the people? Because deputies cannot come in here at 8:30 tonight and vote confidence in the Taoiseach and the government and then go back to their constituencies and try to distance themselves from that vote. Any deputy who comes in here to this House this evening at 8:30 and votes confident in Taoiseach Cowan and in his Fianna Fáil Green government must take responsibility themselves, just as the Taoiseach has responsibility. And the reason, I believe, why the people want change is clear. It is because the verdict on this government is in. The two reports on the banking crisis are a clear statement of the damage done to this country by Fianna Fáil, and those reports, no matter how the Taoiseach tries to reread them or reinterpret them, they stand and they are a clear indictment of government policy. The people of this country know who is to blame and they want change. But the country can't have a fresh start while this government clings to power. For as long as Fianna Fáil remain in government, they will be preoccupied with self-justification, just as we've heard today, with defending their record, with self-preservation. I heard one minister say at the weekend that he couldn't remember ever making a mistake. And apparently, to hear the Taoiseach make his speech here today, apparently he can't remember any mistakes either. We simply cannot afford to have a government that is that far removed from reality. We will not tackle our problems with a government that is serving out its notice, clinging on to power in the faint hope that some kind of recovery will revive their political fortunes, while the rest of us are expected to contract mass amnesia. We need a fresh start and fresh hope. We need a government focused on three core tasks: creating jobs, reforming the way this country is governed, and bringing fairness into the management of our affairs. Economic recovery will not come on its own, and it will not come by focusing exclusively on rescuing the banks and dealing with the public finances. We need a strategy for jobs and for economic growth. We need a government that understands what is happening in the global economy and how Ireland can prosper within it. We need a government that gets the idea that jobs and growth will not come from a hands-off, light-touch approach, but from offering leadership and direction, and from rolling up its sleeves to create jobs in a new, low-carbon knowledge economy. What the global economy is going through is little short of a new industrial revolution. The power centres of the world economy are shifting. Billions of people are being brought into the global trading system, and there is spectacular technological change. The Great Recession is slowing these processes down. They will reassert themselves as the new global economy recovers. This new economy, the knowledge economy, presents great challenges, but also huge opportunities to those countries who understand it and who know how to harness it. It will bring change not just to one or two sectors or to high-tech firms, but right across the economy. And we have to capture that change and to harness it. The government talks about the smart economy, but it doesn't act on it. The Innovation Task Force, Taoiseach, which was established by the government, which has reported months ago, made several good proposals, but they have not been implemented. The government talks about hard decisions, but it is dodging the greatest challenge our country faces, and that is creating jobs. You have taken on board some Labour ideas, like the Earn and Learn scheme that we proposed, or energy conservation in homes that we proposed, but with no force, no drive, no energy. Labour have been unwavering in our focus on job creation. Labour's proposal for a strategic investment bank is designed to meet the financing needs of innovative Irish companies and to assist in financing the infrastructure that they need to thrive. Using capital from the Pension Reserve Fund, we can build a new institution that will be focused directly on financing the new economy. It can help to deal with the impact of the banking crisis, but it is a long-term solution to a long-term need. Labour's Jobs Fund is designed to support this sustainable knowledge economy. It is designed to be allocated outside the estimates process as part of our broader proposals for reform of public expenditure management. The Jobs Fund, which has been proposed by Labour, will provide additional resources to agencies that can deliver jobs. It will be there to finance PRSI exemptions for new jobs, training schemes and new strategies for agencies, provided that they can show that the money will be translated into jobs. Labour's Just the Job proposals on training and work experience are designed to meet the new needs of our workforce. Instead of proposing one big scheme, we have suggested a range of ideas to meet the needs of individuals so that those who have no work can equip themselves to find new employment, so that we avoid the build-up of long-term unemployment that happened in the 1980s. Not everyone will find a job in a high-tech start-up, so Labour's sectoral policies, such as for clean tech and tourism, are designed to build up sectors of the economy where Ireland has natural competitive advantages. As a country, we have great resources of wind and wave that can be converted into clean energy to meet our needs and those of other countries. In tourism, we can enhance and develop Ireland's tourism product in a sector with a presence in every region that offers employment across a range of skills. These are all Labour policy initiatives. They demonstrate that the knowledge economy is a progressive project. It cannot be delivered by a hands-off government, by a government that believes its role in the economy is to get out of the way. That was the thinking that led to the disaster in the banking sector, and it is the same ideology that is blocking them from taking action now. What we need is a government that understands the extent of the change that this new economy needs, and a public sector that is infused with the same spirit. This is the second time in a generation that Ireland has been confronted by a profound economic crisis, and it happened at a time when public trust and confidence in our public institutions was already damaged. It cannot go on. We must stop lurching from one disaster to the next. We have to change the way this country is run, beginning with a change of government, but also changing the way that politics works. Last week here in the Dáil, we saw our national parliament reduced to a farce. We had national and international events that couldn't be discussed because the government ran away from the Dáil. That can't go on. We need real reform of how the Dáil operates. We need a national parliament that meets at least 4 days a week, cuts out the long recesses and deals with relevant issues in a relevant way. But more than that, we have to ensure that individual citizens feel a greater sense of involvement in the decisions that shape our lives. We need more practical democracy, bringing the people back into decision-making. Labour's proposal for a constitutional convention is designed to review the functioning of our institutions with the direct involvement of individual citizens. The Constitution belongs to the people, and if there are to be proposals for far-reaching change, then they must come from a process that involves the people directly. We need to get on with the business of reforming the public sector, as Labour has long proposed, such as the reforming of the HSE, such as Labour's proposal to open up recruitment in the public service and to encourage movement between the public and the private sectors. But we also need to see private sector reform. Many of those who sat on the boards of Irish banks during the making of this crisis remain in place. The unduly deferential approach towards the banks identified by Professor Honohan still exists in government itself. Labour's Never Again proposals for reforming corporate Ireland include far more demanding and modern standards of corporate governance, an end to the system that if you sit on my board and I set the remuneration for yours, the introduction of a Whistleblowers Act, and a break in the link between big money and politics. We must change too the structures of economic governance and management. We need far greater openness about our public finances and far more scrutiny of the effect of government decisions, especially in respect of taxation. The era of design your own tax incentives is over. We need new structures to identify emerging threats to the economy and to subject economic forecasting to greater scrutiny. We should therefore establish an independent fiscal council to act as an external check on macroeconomic forecasts, on the sustainability of public finances and on the true cost of tax breaks. We cannot just pretend that the crisis didn't happen. We have to build in new checks and balances to make sure that it doesn't happen again. We live in an era of limited resources, but that doesn't mean that we have to ration our values. There are certain basic principles that must guide us, like the notion that healthcare is different from other services, that it should be delivered efficiently and with a clear eye to value for money, but that it should not be driven by profit alone. That there is something far more important, far more basic to the human condition and to who we are as a people in how we care and how we die than the bottom financial line. I firmly believe that the future of healthcare in Ireland rests in Labour's proposal for a system of universal health insurance where all are treated equally, not in the outdated ideological reflex of this government that just wants to privatise the VHI. They have no mandate to sell off the VHI. Labour will not do so. We will retain it as a building block of a new and a better universal health insurance system. Fairness demands that we do not inflict the cost of Fianna Fáil's mistakes on a new generation. Once again, this state has been shamed when it couldn't even count the number of children who have died in its care. It is time to hold a constitutional referendum to enshrine in our basic law the rights of the child. And it is long past time that we made a fundamental commitment to the future of our children and of our country by tackling the problems of literacy and numeracy. And I have to say at Cancora that the decision by the Minister for Education to withdraw the services of specialist librarians who work in 20 of the most disadvantaged secondary schools in the state is a callous act of unbelievable folly. This moment must be to this generation what 1958 was to a generation before. A watershed moment when old ways and past failures were left behind and fresh thinking was embraced. There is a real hunger now for change. For generations, the political choices offered to the Irish people boiled down to two versions of the same thing. Now there is a hunger for real change, and Labour is ready to lead that change. It is time for Fianna Fáil to go. It is time for a new start and a new government. It is time to set aside the politics of division. This is too small a country for setting neighbour against neighbour. Labour's vision is of one Ireland, a country that pulls together to get through this economic disaster and that afterwards works together to build a better and a fairer country. A country infused with fresh hope and with the core underlying idea that has driven Labour for a century, the idea of solidarity. This is a great country. Together, from the embers of this crisis, we can build a new and better Ireland if we have the vision of what can be achieved and the commitment to work together to achieve it. It is time for a job strategy for economic recovery. It is time for reform to revive and to renew our institutions. It is a time for fairness in everything we do. It is a time to move on together as one Ireland. But to do so, we need to be freed from the politics of the past. We need to be freed from a government that is now preoccupied with justifying its own past. We need to move on, and that moving on can only come with the defeat of this Fianna Fáil government, the holding of a new election, and an opportunity being given to the people to chart their own future democratically in a general election.